How exciting that we get to talk about the pro-life movement this morning in a post-Roe America. We might be in a post-Roe America, but the pro-life movement is under attack, especially here in Colorado. And it is imperative that now more than ever, we stand up and boldly speak for life. This morning, I have the privilege of introducing some pro-life warriors here in Colorado. We have Tamra Axworthy. She is a Caring Pregnancy Center Women's Clinic CEO. And we have Rich Bennett, Life Network President and CEO. So we just heard the last speaker talking about how important children are because they are some of the most vulnerable among us. Here in the pro-life movement, we are also fighting for the most vulnerable among us. And we have had one of the most hostile legislative seasons that we have ever seen when it comes to abortion. Can you guys give us a brief overview of what the bills have looked like that we saw this past season and what they're pushing right now in Colorado?
Yes, absolutely. I'll start. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you to everybody here. But yes, it has been a very hostile environment. A lot of it is very similar to what we experienced last year with the passing of RHEA. And they affectionately call this year's bills RHEA 2.0 for good reason. But these bills were introduced in March, which was late in the game, and then passed through very quickly, which was similar to the previous year. And but also similar to previous years was the opposition ratio. So there were far more pro-lifers that showed up to testify in committee after committee for all three of these bills. And so that's a testament to see that Colorado is waking up. And our people, like those here today, are seeing the truth of what's happening in our state and are willing to fight. So the three bills were SB 188, which is a protections bill. So if a woman from another state where abortion is illegal comes to Colorado, our state cannot participate in any investigations in her home state. The same is true for physicians who come from other states. It protects them. So locally in Pueblo, Dr. Leroy Carhart, who is a notorious late-term abortionist, recently passed, he came to Colorado, and even though he had many situations with adverse effects for his patients, he would be protected in our state. SB 189 calls into question our ban on taxpayer funding for abortion because this would require health insurance companies to provide abortion and gender-affirming care. So there were several amendments that were introduced. Almost none of them were passed. There was one for conscious laws as a part of the 189 that we are very thankful for. But ultimately, all three passed. SB 190, I know Rich testified on that, so I'll let him talk a little bit about that one.
Yeah, 190, I think, most immediately relates to the pregnancy centers like those that Tamra and I lead, and it really sought to do two things. Number one, to assert that pregnancy centers were using deceptive advertising and as a result had to be regulated. Now, there was no credible evidence presented for that, and one of the things I really appreciated about the legislators is that they said, yes, if we want to be truthful, and we absolutely should be, then let's regulate all pregnancy centers, whether you're pro-abortion, pro-life, or something in between. All of that was rejected because what it was about was intimidating pro-life pregnancy centers. So that was the first piece of 190. And the second piece, and I would say the more tragic piece, was a piece that would make Colorado the one and only state to ban abortion pill reversal, a process that has saved over 4,000 babies in the U.S. And just in Colorado Springs, last year there were 6 women whose babies were saved as a result of APR, and the second half of this law would ban APR.
Isn't it interesting that they say what we're doing and what pregnancy centers are doing is misinformation, or that we're trying to manipulate women, yet they call themselves Planned Parenthood, or do something like that where they're actually misleading women. Tamra, you just talked about, Rich, abortion pill reversal. I'm sure everybody in here is very active and kind of knows what's going on, but for the few that maybe might say, what are you talking about? You can reverse an abortion? What is that? Tamra, can you explain that to us a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. So the abortion pill process is a 2-pill process. The first pill is mifepristone, which is a progesterone inhibitor. And we know that progesterone is vital to carrying a healthy pregnancy. Without it, that baby would die. So that first pill restricts the progesterone inhibitors from accepting that hormone. And then the second pill, which is misoprostol, is the one that causes contractions and causes her to expel the fetus. So the abortion pill reversal or progesterone therapy treatment is really just onboarding more progesterone. If we're able to do that quickly enough, so within the first 72 hours of a woman taking that first abortion pill, it really makes a lot of sense, common sense, that if you are inhibiting progesterone, just add more progesterone. It is a naturally occurring hormone. Women have been taking it for well over 50 years. And for the state to come in and say that's dangerous, it's unsafe, there's no science, is negating 50 years of solid evidence to the effectiveness of progesterone, as well as telling physicians that our legislators know better than they do.
Yeah, I'm going to bring up the elephant in the room here. Progesterone is something that we're actively giving to children who, say they want to change their gender, and there's no effects. But, if a woman says, I took the abortion pill, I regret it, and I'd like to have progesterone to potentially save my baby, we're trying to ban that here in Colorado. I mean, not us, right? But the pro-abortion folks here. And it has become such a hostile environment. I have held babies in my arms, twins actually, who were saved from the abortion pill reversal, which is such an amazing, amazing thing. Why would we not want to give these women the opportunity and the choice? They tout my body, my choice, except when her choice is to reverse the abortion. How are you guys both, this is a question for both of you, kind of navigating the changes that have been thrown at you? Because it's a new territory that we're walking in here.
Yeah, if you look at 190, the front half said pregnancy centers are using deceptive advertising and we need to regulate that. Well, we weren't and we aren't. And so our ads were truthful before the law and our ads remain truthful after the law. So other than facing the intimidation of threatened fines up to $25,000, nobody wants their state government to threaten them with fines. But the reality is we were truthful before, we'll continue to be truthful in the advertising we do. I think it's that second piece of abortion pill reversal that, if it's allowed to stand, is going to cause not just pregnancy centers, but medical professionals to have to decide, do I want to break the law and face fines? And if I'm a physician, do I want to face losing my license because my state is saying that a practice that's allowed in every other state, and oh, by the way, internationally, countries all over the world, because my state ideologically, not medically, has decided that this isn't allowed. And so I think that's the piece. Right now it's holding, and we're waiting on a ruling from 3 boards, the Physicians Board, the Nursing Board, and the Pharmacy Board. That'll come by the end of September. We need to step into that, and we have been. There were almost 900 pages of written testimony and then oral testimony shared just within the last week. My hope is if they make a medical decision that piece of the legislation will get tossed out, and we'll see by the end of September.
Do you have anything to add to that, Tamra?
Not really. Ours is very similar. Our organization takes a pro-informed choice stance on abortion. We know it's legal. We know it's in Colorado. But we want our women to know the truth about it and all the options, which the progesterone therapy would be an option for them. So we're going to continue to educate on that. We're going to continue to provide resources for women and wait and see what happens with these medical boards come October 1st.
Yeah, absolutely. We have seen a lot of people give testimony down at the state capitol. I gave testimony. I believe both of you have given testimony on some of these bills. And the pro-lifers outnumber the pro-abortion folks by a landslide, which is incredible. However, we're still seeing chaos down there. And it sounds like when I hear these people who are pro-abortion giving their testimony and saying what they're saying, we're coercing women. It sounds like we're locking them in a room and don't let them come out until the baby's here, right? Like that's what they make it sound like. Can you explain what it is really like inside of a pregnancy center and what these women experience when they come to you? I know you mentioned you do say that abortion is an option, because if we don't say that, then they're going to talk to somebody else and confide in somebody else in that area. But what is it really like when you go in? Because these people have never stepped foot in one.
We've been told over and over that it's the first medical kind of facility they've walked into where they felt safe, where they felt heard, where they felt understood. We are very careful with our culture and with the environment that we create in order for it to be welcoming. And we have Google reviews, Facebook reviews, testimonials, galore, hundreds of pages of material that our clients have given us that express how deeply grateful they are for the environment that we have created for them. It is not a sterile medical environment, but it is also not grandma's house. It is a very comfortable, safe space for them.
And maybe I would illustrate what Tamra and I and our centers in Pueblo and Colorado Springs get to do through a story. And so there was a woman by the name, I'll call her Chloe, who came into our center. And like most of the young women and men who come into our center, completely overwhelmed by the notion that they might be pregnant. Most of them would love to be pregnant someday, but today is not that day. And so she was facing a pregnancy that in her mind was going to be the death of her dream to finish her master's degree. And so she was completely overwhelmed. And her first appointment, we provided a medical grade pregnancy test, but more than that, we gave her space to process that decision, to talk to her about her. And just for those of you who are out there, if you encounter somebody who's facing an unexpected pregnancy and you don't feel trained and you don't feel equipped, the number one thing you can do is talk to them about them. And so that's one of the things that our team and our staff is trained to do. Chloe then came back for a second appointment, and there she received a medical grade ultrasound provided by, for us, one of 8 staff nurses. And that's another one of these myths out there, that there are no medical professionals at a pregnancy center. And I look at my 8 staff nurses and the 20 medical professionals that serve with us, and I say, well, I guess you don't have the credentials you thought that you had. The reality is we have rigorous medical staff and trained staff that come alongside them. And so Chloe goes through an ultrasound, and there she meets her baby. And like 87% of the women that we serve, Chloe chose life for her baby. So, I mean, it's amazing the power of an ultrasound. But the care just starts from that moment. And again, that doesn't make it go away that Chloe needs support. And so every other week for more than 2 years, she met with a parenting coach. And as she did, she received a crib, a car seat, baby clothes, diapers, formula, and more. And these material resources are the kind of resources that pregnancy centers provide that abortion clinics do not. And you joked about Planned Parenthood. You would think an organization called Planned Parenthood would help people parent. We have people who are sent to us from Planned Parenthood because they say, oh, honey, we don't do that. Go to the pregnancy center down the street. The best part of Chloe's story is not only did she graduate from our parenting program, she got that master's degree. And so it doesn't have to be the death of your dreams.
That's amazing. I heard somebody clapping when he said chose life. So I just want to give you the opportunity to clap for that. It is interesting what Planned Parenthood is doing. And we had AOC not too long ago, it's been a little while now, said something about Planned Parenthood saves lives. And I actually did something where I called Planned Parenthood on speakerphone and pretended like I was a pregnant woman, we'll call it an undercover suburban mom journalist, and said, I am pregnant, can I come in for a prenatal appointment? And this was here in Denver. And she said, no ma'am, we only do abortions. I suggest you call an OBGYN. I mean, they're not there to support the women, but that's what you guys are doing. For everybody who's in here listening to you, who feels a little bit convicted and says, I need to get involved in this. This is the most important battle that we have right now. This is the most vulnerable among us. And if we cannot care for these, then we cannot care for anybody else. And if the right to life doesn't matter, there are no other rights that do. So we have to be fighting for the right to life. How would you suggest that the folks here get involved? I know we have a lot of active and engaged people here. How can they help you guys?
I would say that a groundswell starts with grassroots. we have to connect locally with those pregnancy centers. There's not a there is a statewide coalition now. There's actually 86 different organizations part of our new statewide coalition. There are 51 pregnancy centers in the state of Colorado. And I guarantee there is one close to every person in this room and close to every person watching online. Find out who that is. Go introduce yourself. Sign up for their newsletter so that you stay informed about what activities are happening, what news is coming out, what the legislation is doing that will affect those pregnancy centers, and then go testify. We have to continue to show up, and we have to continue to support those pro-life legislators like Stephanie Luck and Bob Gardner and these others who have been fighting so hard on our behalf. They need to know that they have that support. So I would suggest that, as well as volunteering time, giving financial resources. All of that is vitally important.
Yeah, and I would summarize it with 3 simple things to consider. Number 1, every day in our state, there are women and men wrestling with the kind of decisions we're talking about. And so just in Colorado Springs alone, I know there are 7 women on average who are facing a pregnancy and seeking desperate options. When you wake up in the morning, pray for them, because that is a very real moment that's happening for young people all across our state, all across our nation. I think the second opportunity, and Tamra touched on it, is serving. We don't get to do what we do without the faithful support of volunteers. And so there are a number of roles where you can appropriately volunteer that you would be trained for. And so if you're sitting here and you're thinking that God might be nudging you to get involved with the pregnancy center, step into that. And I think the last piece is the funding. Everything we've talked about this morning is available at no cost. So we are obligated as taxpayers to pay over $500 million of taxpayer funds to Planned Parenthood. And unfortunately, we don't get a choice in that. You do have a choice if you want to come alongside and support a woman or a man with choices beyond abortion. And that's what Tamra and I and other centers all across this state get to do every day.
Absolutely. We are short on time. I'm going to do something, and I'm going to ask for forgiveness later. Sorry, Jeff. If you have been involved in the pro-life movement in any way, if you have donated, if you have testified, if you have volunteered your time, I would like for you to stand up and for us to give you a round of applause. Because we cannot do what we do without all of you. Thank you, and thank you to Rich, and thank you to Tamra and everybody. It is an honor to be fighting for life alongside you, alongside the folks at Western Conservative Summit.